Hi guys, my name is Max Spence. I'm the host of Max Spence Business Podcast. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Mike. He's actually the owner of 1922, a cannabis retailer in Toronto. It's great having you on, Mike.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So why don't we jump right into this? Why don't we do a little intro about, who you are and your background?
Cool. So first and foremost, I guess I have a pretty diverse background for being what we're getting into. I guess we'll get into that in more detail, but I think broad strokes, went to university in Australia and Sydney. So that was pretty cool from a diversity and just an untraditional standpoint of just education. I've had experiences in on the agency side of the world, but predominantly my background's been the last 12 or 13 years is in telecommunications with both Bell and Rogers. Fundamentally, like on the core marketing side of things, more on like kind of, I'd say, a good balance of managing the business and running the business, which is really great experience. So I was at Rogers for just under 7 and at Bell for, I think it was literally almost 6 by the time 1922 got off the ground, which were really incredible experiences for me personally. I got to do things I never thought I was going to be able to do, and from a career standpoint, it was super exciting. And just really chased roles that had really high levels of contribution and influence. So predominantly those roles and some of those organizations are generally pricing derived or oriented. I would say kind of the alpha roles within any bigger organization. So that's where I spent the bulk of my time was in, revenue management, operations, IT, kind of end to end. In pricing roles, you kind of need to know everything end to end, from Marcom all the way to how customer care reps do things. So really great experience. And I thought that had a lot of direct parallels to the cannabis industry, because telecom, I think, is probably one of the most complex systems and business models there is, like trying to put rate plans and hardware plans and accessories and like multi-product, multi-SKUs into a vast distribution network. And then you have your customer care org. So it's extremely complex. So when this opportunity presented itself, when Premier Ford basically said that we're going to privatize cannabis, it directly got my broken eyes attention immediately.
Okay, nice. So, did you have any entrepreneurship experience beforehand? Did you start any businesses, or were you in sort of, maybe like a subcontractor role in another company, or did you just have these high-level manager positions in, like telecommunication companies?
No, it's a great question. I think, no, to answer the question, no. But to answer it broadly, I think I'd been around entrepreneurship a lot. Like my parents were both entrepreneurs. My dad grew up in the music industry as a promoter, working with EMI and Sony Canada and a lot of things for a lot of years. So I was always around that entrepreneurship sort of hustle and mindset and grind. Which is really exciting. My partner, Brooke, she also has she's on a little hiatus from now, but she had her own small business called Silversides Communications, where she did grant writing and proposals, which was super exciting. And I helped her a lot with the kind of lead generation and just wherever her clients would take her down paths, the two of us would tackle it. So it's always been something that's been incredibly intriguing for me. I never thought, first and foremost, I would be down this kind of white collar, ivory tower, telco executive sort of path. If I would have asked myself 15 years ago, I would have kicked my own ass if I would have said that's where I would have ended up. But it was a really great experience. So I think deep down, I was always looking to take the jump. It was just, what was that vehicle to do it in? And I didn't really have any answers, but I always knew it was intriguing. And I have a lot of friends that are in the same kind of environment and hustle as well. So as soon as the cannabis thing presented itself, I looked at it first and foremost as a business opportunity. I'm not too romantic about cannabis as some people as a subculture are extremely passionate about it. I mean, it's my new day job. So I am passionate about it from that standpoint, but I kind of looked at it as not kind of like a basic commodity that had a really dynamic opportunity that I was going to get an opportunity to solve for, which was really intriguing to me. So it's like, how do you bring retail and consumer packaged goods and the service industry with some online elements into this like crazy new industry that's been plugged in and mesh all these things together? So I saw it as this really intriguing puzzle to be able to go and tackle. And I was grateful to be able to have the opportunity to put our hat in the ringer to be able to go solve it. was definitely not a straight path by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just super intriguing.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to be in it. It's going to be like the next couple of years are going to be a crazy ride, but you know, we're just at the point in our lives where Brooke and I are both 38. We've chosen not to have kids. We live downtown. We've done, by traditional standpoint, the right things. You buy a condo, you save money, you have RSPs, you be a cheapskate, you don't go on holidays. You're supposed to do all those kind of traditional things that one is supposed to do at that age. So we had a bit of a nest egg saved up, and we're just like, you know what? I think we're able to take this risk. At the time, it was calculated before it turned, at points, if I'm honest with you, idiotic and just crazy, with no light at the end of the tunnel sort of things. But we just wrote it out, and then here we are. So, I mean, if you want to ask me more specific questions, I can get into it, but those are kind of just like broad strokes about my background being around entrepreneurship, and then finally just basically taking the jump and going for it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. That was really interesting into your sort of seeing your background and where you sort of went into the telecommunications world and then made that switch, because telecommunications to starting your own, cannabis stores, it's not the same industries. But I really like that you saw the opportunity, and that's what like entrepreneurship is about, right? It's just you see an opportunity and you act on it and you do something about it, or you create something to provide for that service. So pretty much,
it's just to piggyback off that point, like it's a really good point. And when you talk about an opportunity, I looked at it this way. I was like, I'm either gonna take a limb thinking that you're at 38 years old, you're capable, you're not young anymore. I got some gray hairs on my head, even though I look like little Jesus over here right now. But it was the time to do it. And it was either like, I'm either going to do it and I can live with doing the right things, the right process, not cutting corners, literally leaning into it as hard as Brooke and I can lean into it, to points maybe like, mental health concerns and strain type of thing, or just be a chicken and not take the risk and have to live with basically my own doubt and self-fear at a certain age, to not take advantage of something that literally could have earned us personally, business-wise, financially, something that literally could be an opportunity that could be absolutely life-changing. So it's one of those moments of truth for sure. Just to piggyback off your point, being like, this is if I didn't do this, I'm going to have to live with the regret and watch everyone else go through it just because it was risky or not safe, or, leaving a comfortable life on the table to go take something which is like an outlier, really. Like it's a crazy industry to think. I don't know about you, my adult life, I'm really saying anything new, unless you want to call like an iPhone or an iPod or maybe Bitcoin.
Yeah.
In my adult life, I haven't seen anything net new, It was just one of those things. It's like this, it's the time. I mean, it's a long story. I could pontificate about it for hours. I'm not gonna, unless you ask me specific questions, I won't get into all the detail, but it's one of those things. You just got to do it. Like, if you're passionate about it, like, you got to put your weight behind it and do, like, it's got to consume you. So that's what we saw. That's what we took. And it was 19 months max. 19 months of absolute mental torment. Like, whatever you think your mind and your body can consume, from risk, from fear, from unknown, to literally, like, and when I mean that, like, I mean it as sincerely as anyone's watching this. Like, it's what it takes, right? Like, literally, Brooke hates when I say this, but I'm just going to do it to be dramatic to prove the point. But I mean, like when I mean financially, like, literally, we sat on a space and paid rent on a space that generated no revenue until a month ago. Like, I'm going to let that point just like pause and let that sink in for people. Like, that's how bad you want it.
Yeah.
From November 2018 until June 12th, literally, financially, a black hole every single month, paying rent on a space in the hope and your desire to want to get to where you want to get to. Like, that's the level of crazy and commitment this really took.
Yeah. That sounds really intense. And
it's crazy. Like, literally, I don't want anyone to hear this and think, I don't even know in myself. Again, I would recommend to like, if I were someone else, it was mental, like what Brooke and I did, legitimately, like, borderline insane. But I think it's one of those things, if you make a choice, which we did. You have to make the best of it. And that's exactly what we did. And there was a lot of months where there was literally no light at the end of the tunnel. Like I didn't even know which way up was. I didn't know what way. It was like a black hole, literally being in a cave, and I didn't know which way was up. But it was one of those things where you just got to keep moving forward, keep being optimistic, keep planning, keep, small little steps forward. Some days you're moving backwards, some days you're moving side to side. But when you hit that adversity, it's a fight or flight moment for some people. So if anyone's trying to do their hustle or trying to do their thing you're going to hit those walls, you're going to hit that adversity. Like that's when you double down and really challenge yourself and really push through. So it's pretty much 18 months of that every single day of that torment, right?
Yeah. That sounds like, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and usually when when you jump into you get into that new industry, you start a new business, there's your emotions are up here the entire time because you don't know what's going to happen. Every single day you have constant anxiety because it's oh, is something bad going to happen? Is this going to stop something? Or just in general, it's it's just the unknown, right?
God, in isolation, those emotions are to say overwhelming is probably that's probably not the right way to describe it, but literally with a full-time day job, right? I'm still at Bell during this time. So it's not like life's standing still. This is literally with the 60 or 70 hour commitment, the pressure, managing teams, managing budgets, and then this technically on the side, which is really not on the side. It's literally almost a full-time thing, right? So gotta want it, man. That's all I can say to anyone listening to this. You want to get there, you gotta want it.
Yeah. That is a very true point. You gotta, because it's not, you're putting in 40 to 50 hours. It's some days some weeks you're putting up to 80 to 100 hours and you're not sleeping some nights because, you have deadlines that you need to meet with your second business.
You know what? It's blind faith, and I would say to anyone, it's about doing the right thing, and you're never going to cut a corner. You can't cut steps. I'm not sure if we can swear, what the language is on here, but you got to F and do it. There is no, you got to put in the work, and it's not a numeric value thing to say to your friends, if you have the energy to even have a pint with them or even ask them how you're doing. It's just literally about doing the right things and being relentless with doing them. And I think that's the challenge with a lot of people that I've been around, is they're looking for that corner to cut or that little shortcut. There is no such thing. And it's going to be interesting to see in this industry as stores and other operators start to bloom, who's going to prevail in 3 to 5 years, because this is not going to be easy. It's not a gold rush. This isn't 2016 with the stock market where anyone can literally throw a dart and some people hit a bullseye and some people didn't. And I think people are looking at the operators now as a similar kind of gold rush. And I could tell you firsthand, this is hand-to-hand combat in the trenches every day. It's going to take relentlessness of detail and people and optimism and just literally fight. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the market, right? We're going to see probably 15 to 2,000 stores pop up in Ontario, probably within the next 15 to 18 months. Wow. And then the market's probably going to consolidate for sure. The big guys will probably start to eat some of the more successful shops in this, the people that got into it thinking that this was going to be easy, or they owned a property, or they thought this is just a quick make rich scheme and they could literally just put, I have a friend that, I'm going to not literally, but just to prove a point, his thought was, you could just do it in vending machines. It could be that simplistic. You put it in there and you'd make millions. And I think at the time that was probably not a wrong comment, but now seeing everything that we've been through, that's absolutely not what, that's not going to be the output. It's going to take its ton of hard work. We've learned that. Brooke and I already knew that going in, but I think we're not scared by it. If anything, it's just what we're prepared to do. But yeah, dude, it's tough, man. Like anything, I think a lot of people just looked at it as a get rich scheme. Yeah. If I'm honest with you, the general consensus, you have your friends, everyone's got friends. I'm sure you guys have all bullshitted about, oh, we could do this and it's millions and it's this and it's that. But like anything, as soon as you put your 2 feet in, the reality hits real hard. Yeah.
Pretty much, it's the same with every business, right? It's and it's probably even harder with this business because it's a new industry, right? So laws are changing and things are moving around, and how many stores are allowed in certain provinces and all that stuff, and your competition. And then you got the US as well is starting to legalize it more, so you're gonna have
Yep.
US competition coming in, so it's not you're just competing against Canadians, you're competing against the US as well. So
Yeah.
it's going to get really exciting and really crazy. Yeah, but that's crazy to hear. So how did you when you saw the legalization coming, and you sort of saw it happening, so what did you sort of do to actually start planning and getting ready to do this store? Was it sort of like a thought like, hey, I'm going to jump into this, and then over time it got like a lot more serious? Or were you sort of at that point in your life looking to sort of jump off and do your own sort of thing or start your own business?
Oh, it's a great question. I think it's all the above. I don't know about you, but like I tend to be a bit of a psychopath in some things in life where it's just about learning, and I'll just learn about things just to learn about them, and just put like 2 feet forward and just for something with idle times to continue growth and development. So cannabis is something that was always there. Obviously, I've been surrounded, like in full transparency. I'm not a huge consumer. I think I alluded to that earlier. But I was fascinated on the economics behind it. I think, telecom, when you alluded to competition, like for doing this for 12 or 13 years, where I think it would scare the living crap out of some people, having like stores right beside each other and like Starbucks and coffee shops all there. Coming from a telco background, you go into any mall and there's literally just a line of Bell, Rogers, Fido, Kudo, prepaid, like literally just like a telco alley, especially go to Dufferin Mall. I'm not sure if you're in Toronto where you're at, or like Eaton Center. So it's something that was conditioned to realize like the sum of really small tweaks will end up prevailing in probably a better customer experience, should hopefully translate in sales. So from a competition standpoint, I really wasn't scared by it. If anything, I was looking forward to it. But I just started studying. I don't know how this came. Even Brooke and I were talking about it the other day. I don't know how this came. I have no explanation for it, but I just started studying Colorado and Washington and the states that had legalized it. And they had pretty public data access, which I thought was really unique, that I had never seen. Like, I don't know about you, but I've never seen an alcohol consensus or a liquor consensus, an alcohol or cigarette consensus, both in a Canadian or American context, especially like, spend per capita or spend per person per month, like normalized. Like I had never seen any of those statistics before. So I was shocked when I was just doing data, like in just the state of Colorado, that they were just generally publishing this stuff. Like they were publishing like the average consumer, basically like total basically retail sales over the population size was, the average person in the state of Colorado was spending $88 a month. I think full year it was closer to $800 a month. So then you're just like, geez, okay, so they're 5 years ahead of us. Like if you saw a trend coming this way. So I was just like, okay, I'm a bit of a critical realist, I think is probably the easiest way to say it. So I'm like, I just smelled bullshit. I'm like, this can't be true. There's no way. There's the catch. I'm missing something. So then I started to study Washington State. Similar, had just put it in. I think they were 2 years behind the state of Colorado, and they had similar numbers and like literally public data stats. And I was just like, what? Like this can't be. I probably spent 5 months just being like, this can't be true. Like, there's no way. I'm missing something. This is BS. Like, there's no way that this market is that big. Because I think I think everyone can make a generalized observation and comment, but just seriously quantify it is different. Like, I don't think we honestly know what liquor sales are in Canada, or like the average person spends on liquor a month, including like LCBO, beer store, wine racks, plus food and beverage, like out at a bar. Like it's probably in the hundreds. But that stat will never get, will probably never, ever, ever be realized for anyone to know. And then I started to realize like the dynamics between the two states, which I found fascinating. So like Colorado, the average person bought in really high frequency, in really high quantity, but less frequency. Whereas in the state of Washington, probably a lower economic status within that state, you could see that the public bought at more frequency, but lower basket sizes. So it'd be like the equivalent in liquor of someone buying a Mickey every day versus buying a 60 because of the fear that they would drink the 60 potentially in a day or two, or a case of beer, or just to normalize it and to like contextualize it. So it was interesting. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. There's two guardrails there. So I started just doing some like financial modeling, just reading in general, getting like deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think that was probably like, I don't know, I want to say like May, June, July of 2018. And then you could see Premier Forge, you know, the Cannabis Act was rolling out. You could see the momentum that was taking. And then I just, through my social networking friends, just started having, I kind of knew some lobbyists within the government groups within Ontario. And there was lots of whispers about privatizing it and the concern about the government having the ability or the means or the capability to be able to operate, which is really a really dynamic operating model. Like if, you know, for context, if you walked into an LCBO and asked someone at the cash register what grape and what origin the grape came from in their $16 bottle of wine, like you could just imagine the reaction. So that's the question that I'm facing every day in our store, right? Like we're getting these sorts of detail-oriented sorts of questions. So like you could see.
I just want to put a point like that is actually very true. That's very true what you said, because you know, you know, I don't know what you would call people that, well, I don't know, people that smoke weed, they're much more into sort of like the background of the flower, right? Compared to the majority of people that, you know, maybe go into an LCBO, like you just said, like, you know, the majority of people aren't going to walk into an LCBO and start looking at the wines and start asking where, you know, where are these grapes from and how are they made and all this sort of stuff. Whereas people that smoke weed are much more
like someone that's into Scotch or into wine is not walking into an LCBO.
Yeah.
So it's a really unique, so like that was the challenge that Brooke and I faced. Like you're going to have people that have never consumed before all the way into this quote unquote self-expert. And even the expert, if I'm honest with you, maybe an expert at consumption, but from a understanding what the product is, you are very much a beginner like the rest of us, unless you have a background in PhD in biochem and you've been studying something for the 42 years that literally no scientist has studied with the plant and its effects. We're all kind of new. So it's a really dynamic operating model, how you engage, how you connect, how you disarm people, not disarm, but like take their walls down or vulnerability to have an experience that maybe they haven't had the greatest, because it's gray market, right? Like you don't really know what you're consuming. Otherwise, with it, you know, I use the analogy a lot. I don't want to get too much on a tangent, but like I use an analogy. Say I had you over, Max, and you come in my house. I'm like, Max, you want something to drink? And you're like, yeah, Mike. And I just hand you a glass. And you're like, Mike, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. And you're like, well, is it liquor? Is it beer? Is it wine? Like, what am I drinking here, Mike? And I'm like, I don't know. You want it? But yet when we talk about cannabis, that sort of analogy has been accepted for basically since the amount of time, right?
Yeah.
So when you normalize it and think of it like that, it's literally insane what we've been doing as an like that as an industry. I'm going to call it a formal industry now since the Cannabis Act, but it's relatively crazy that like people have taken that analogy and just normalize it as in the common behavior. Whereas now, like, that's the first question I ask people. It's like, well, what is it? They're like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, okay, peace. Not that I'm turning it's my day job and things, but as you can start to see, as you start to educate yourself and understand experiences and things and potency, you know, I'm just not going to start just rolling the dice on black market stuff. But that's my own education. But that's our opportunity as an operator now to be able to fulfill that. So it's really interesting. It's dynamic, man. Like it really is. I forgot what your original question was. I'm sorry if we got off track.
No problem. That was a really interesting comment.
Oh, sorry. Your question was how we got into it. So I started doing that, and then all of a sudden, we just started getting deeper, like anything, right? Like Brooke and I just started doing more research. I probably spent the better part of, I would call it July to September. I created a financial model, and I literally took this, it probably consumed me. I would get to work, you know, I'm not a bell anymore, so I have no regret saying half these things, but like, let's call it 2 hours at least every day. Generally in the morning when I had time to think, and I would do a bottom up financial model. So I would literally take, like, how would you take grams by low cost, medium cost, high cost, 8s, 7s, 15s, 30, pre-rolls, edibles. And I would literally try to find like a financial like mix of what I thought consumers would buy, what you thought the mixes would be, what would be the average basket per sale. And I literally just stared at it for probably 4 months and was like, this is just too good to be true. Like, there's just no way. This isn't real. Like, that's all I could keep going through. It's like, this isn't real. Like, this is insane. Like, this is just a license to print money in theory, right? That's your delusion going into it, type of thing. Your motivation to keep going. So I literally just kept going. And then honestly, it just evolution. So they announced it was going private. And then we just started. The next step for us was, it was a free market application rule. So Brooke, being grant writing and proposals, she's an absolute wizard and just fanatical about understanding government regulations and sites. So working with the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, for me, it seems like hieroglyphics when I look at it. Like it just like might as well pull out a paper bag and have an anxiety attack, where Brooke, it's like a fastball down the middle to her. So, we were able to navigate those parts, and we were looking at the rules and the regulations and the eligibility, and we hit all the boxes, which was interesting. But the big moment of truth was, I would call it, this is your moment of truth, right? Like, for sure, it's putting your money where your mouth is. To be able to apply, you had to have a place secured. You had to have a lease secured. So really think about it as getting into this isn't the hypothetical. It's you're applying because you are committed to doing this. They're going to give you rules, and you demonstrate how you're going to exercise those rules from a health and safety and a public safety standpoint, first and foremost. And it's your job to demonstrate how you're going to do that to open. So it's very much it's a really weird mindset, because you and I are generally used to being like, well, like, if I get approved, then I buy a space. And it's like, no, you have to commit to being an operator, and then we'll approve you. So it's it was a really weird mindset for us to get into. So it's just like progression, man.
That must have been pretty, like, you get up to that point and you think like, okay, I'll apply for it and then we'll sort of get the place, but getting the place beforehand.
That would be your normal, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were talking to your friends, you're talking to your family, that would be how you would inch closer, right?
Yeah.
But with this is a completely foreign concept to Brooke and I. We're like, wait a minute, like we got to go all in, and then we get approved. So it's literally like jumping into the deep end with cinder blocks on with really blind faith, right? So I think we did our work. Like we did the external work. I did the financial work. Brooke did the regulation work. And we kind of came to a consensus, be like, okay, like I think generally we can do this. And then we started making decisions off of 8 criteria. And the first set of criteria was, criminal checks. You have to demonstrate to them you have the ability to be able to operate. Financially, you have the means and capabilities. And 3, you have to have a space secured. So we started making decisions off of getting closer to this based off that criteria. So, the next evolution or the next step for us was we had to go look at spaces. And then you can just imagine September of 2018, it was, I can't, it's a family show, so I can't use language, but like, you could just imagine if I were to role play a conversation with a real estate agent being like, hey, we want to be a cannabis operator. Can you show us the space? You could just imagine the language coming out the other end of the phone at us, or literally just a click. So you call the 100 real estate agents, you'd probably get 98 FUs, and you get a hang up, and you may have one person that may be half interested. Or the other end, it was literally someone would, like on Queen West, I remember calling a store where Honeypot actually went to, just out of curiosity. I called the number, and literally the guy's like, yeah, cannabis, $50,000 a month, take it or leave it. Okay, bye, click. And that was the conversation. Like, I'm not lying, I'm not being dramatic. Like you're just like, whoa, how is this? Whoa, like, wait a minute. Like, that was the first kind of like red flag of being like, okay, like this truly is new. This is getting a little crazy. So we just started doing our due diligence over 2 months and started looking at spaces, but really we were doing the work from a micro market standpoint, is like, what type of business do we want to be? Do we want to be and especially financially, because now this is where the rubber hits the road, right? It's like, do we want to be the Young and Dundas tourist, $1 million overhead, probably $4 million of employee OPEX kind of like massive McDonald's of just machine gunning tourists in and out of a store all day? Or do we want to be kind of the smaller, quick serve, let's call it 1,500 to 2,000 square foot sort of operator. Let's call it a team of 10 people in a liberal gentrifying area that you think would be accepting of a local business coming in. Because you got to remember, it's a new concept for people, right? Like there's going to be, there was, and there is to this day, a ton of pushback from the general public that just haven't seen it or consumed it. So we put our money where our mouth is. We live in the East End, like Old Toronto. And I think it's like from a population density standpoint and quantitatively, it's the fastest part of growing area of Toronto. There are red flags, like there are safe injection sites. There are things that have plagued the East End from probably historically from probably 40, 50, 60 years back. But we've kind of fell in love with being like, this is not going to be someone's first criteria. They're going to go Yonge and Dundas. They're going to go Queen West. They're going to go Yorkville. They're going to take all the major things. If you were to go raise millions of dollars to go put in a store, that's where they're going to go. And our vision was kind of to bet against the market and the other end of that and do the local gentrifying neighborhood shop, small, quick serve, literally probably have OPEX like literally 1/10 the size of some of these other guys, but could potentially do 70, 80% of the top line revenue or sales. So that was kind of our next step in evolution. So that's what we started to do. And that's how we really ended up in the East End in our store. We found a spot, both from a property management standpoint and from a store look and feel standpoint. Our values just matched up. They were really, A Rentals has been a really big partner of ours and really huge of accept. You can just imagine Brooke and I, right? Like two 37-year-old kids really walking in, talking about this cannabis dream. Like you can just realize how much of a crazy person you sound like, right? Like if I were to be on the other end of the foot and I wasn't here right now, I'd be like, what the hell is wrong with you two? Like, what are you even talking about? Like should just give this to a Starbucks, or I should give this to a spa or a gym. Like, why would I take a bet on leasing this place to a cannabis business that I think is associated with crime and money laundering and fear? So you can just imagine how we had to overcome all of those basic questions, which are legitimate questions, right? Like, anyone could put a business anywhere to try to help. So we had to demonstrate to them how we would do it differently. So it's really just started snowballing from there. And then I think we closed the place on Black Friday of 2018, if my memory is accurate on that. And then basically that was a criteria. So we made decisions off of that criteria, and literally Brooke and I killed ourselves on business plans, operating model. We got to hire a corporate lawyer, a cannabis lawyer, a store designer, a contractor. Like you can just imagine, and I don't know where people that listen to your podcast are financially, but I would say I was a pretty conservative guy. Like, thousands of dollars would definitely stop me and pause me and get my attention. So you can just imagine, literally, it's just like, right? Like everyone's got an invoice. You're like, okay, I'm into this now. $500 an hour lawyer fees. Like, you're just like, holy crap, like this is real. So we killed ourselves basically for, I'd say 45 days. Like we did the impossible, what we thought was the impossible. And we were set to apply for the free market rules. I believe, do you remember, bro, was the date specifically?
It was like, the application was like on the 13th of December.
It was December 13th. I remember.
Like 2 days before the application.
So we were set on the 3rd, I believe it was December 3rd. I think it was a Monday, Sunday night at noon, the application portal opened. There was no minimum. There was no maximum. If you hit the eligibility, you were approved to open as long as you had a space. I'm overgeneralizing or oversimplifying just for the basis of this conversation. But that was the criteria in which we got into this on. And literally, I think it was the Friday night, we got an email at 6:00 at night, because that's when we started to have some supply chain shortages with cannabis overall, because basically the Ontario Cannabis Store and what was going on in Alberta had been ahead of us, and there became a supply shortage. So the government flipped it to a lottery model. And that lottery model is you and I, Max, had the same weighting, the same criteria. The only difference is you paid $75 and I had $50,000 on the line.
Holy shit.
And a store and 5-year lease and everything. So literally you're just like, wait, this was not the criteria in which we signed up for. We signed for A criteria, not B criteria. And I was alluding to at the start, you got to make the best of things and put your best foot forward and not just panic and give up. I wanted to. My first instinct was just like, okay, Like, this is crazy. We tried, we've done our best, you know, there's some learning, there's some growth, but like, this is insane. So I'd say we just like compartmentalize things, like every day, every week, every month, we compartmentalize just trying to do the right things. So we had the lottery, and I think literally, Max, we were like something like 10,000 out of like 16,000 applications, with no people had done any work, any business plan, no financial commitment, no retail space, no mental anguish, no lawyer, no anything. Literally, that's where we stood. So you could just imagine how like we felt like idiots, right? Like sadness, embarrassment, just ridicule, just, you know, like literally dark moments. But we had made the commitment at that point. So we basically had negotiated in transparency for your listeners. Like, we had negotiated that we would basically have a 12-month commitment with our real estate or our management company, that we had a 12-month opt-out. So basically, like, within 1 year we could opt out, but we lose everything. We lose our down payments. We lose anything that we put in the space. You literally just walk away. So that's what we had committed to. So we had given ourselves 1 year. Brooke and I looked at each other and we said, you know, we set I'd call it a threshold on cash, which again, even to say out loud, I think I'm just like literally still have trauma from it, or it doesn't even dent me now when it really should. But like, let's call it $100,000. We're like, of my own money, our own money, hard worked, 15 years of like doing the right thing literally is on the line to try to do this. Like, this is the type of commitment that it took. We gave ourselves that sort of freedom, or that sort of timeline. And then we lived, you know, and then June with the lottery again, and, you know, even crazier coming up with, you know, similar rule, but this time you needed $300,000. You needed a corporate bank account. You need all these other things. And it's just like, again, the banks didn't, at this point, Max, like, if any listener out here, you're just like, oh, just get a bank account. What's the big deal? You start a small business. Nope.
Yeah, the banks won't.
Nope. By calling any single bank and telling them you're a cannabis operator, it's a very short, like my real estate anecdote to you is even faster. And the only bank that was willing to take on any of that risk, mostly just through their own internal, I call it probably like internal rules and regulations, like especially because they're American based, is they just can't touch the space just within their own internal bylaws. I think BMO is unique because they don't have that American interest in money so they were really the only ones that were willing to entertaining us to take it on. So they took us on. So like, you got to think about it. To be able to apply to this lottery, you have to have $300,000. Let me say that again, $300,000 liquid in a bank account. And you can't get a bank account to get a bank letter to say that it's in there. And then on top of that, you have to get a pre-approved $50,000 line of credit. That's cash backed. And the financial institutions are like, we didn't sign up for this. We don't even know how to do that. So you could just imagine just the mechanics of being like, even to mutter those words, let alone have the cash, let alone to get a bank account in the hopes to apply and basically relive the same nightmare again. I think we were like, I don't even know where we were on the list. I think there was 535 applicants for the second lottery. I think there was 13 spots allocated. And it was a mess. It was a complete mess. To say trauma is probably an understatement. I remember vividly, Brooke she went to Queens for her undergrad and her master's, and she had an alumni dinner, something of that sort. And we were driving, and it was just like, you know what, babe, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like, this is just, it's just this, I just don't think it's ever going to happen. Like, it's just, you know, you have your breaking point, like everyone does, type of moment. And we talked it out, and it was just, we're either out, and you know, at this point, Max, I think we're out $89,000, or you go forward.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and you have your tail between your legs. You literally pissed away your life savings, or like parts of your life savings. Just turn around and say, oops, I tried. I'm not going to go forward. So there is no, like, both of these propositions are completely irrational and frankly unacceptable. Right. So we're like, okay, we're here. What if we just start doing renovations? Like, this has to turn. Like, we started to think it through. And you're like, if they don't turn this and go back to a free market model, like a $4 billion industry crumbles. which I don't think the government's going to let to do. I don't think I don't think basically all the advocates from Lloyd, from the financial advocates to the capital markets, to private equity, like there's just too much money to let this happen. So we doubled down. We were this far. So we started doing renovations in September, and we're like, if this doesn't end up happening, then we'll open a coffee shop, or we'll find a business model that has parallels, and we'll just make it work. At this point, you're committed, right? So that's what we ended up started doing. So we literally went from being complete psychopaths to literally basically sociopaths within a short period of time, and turned like an $80,000 hole into a $150,000 hole to be ready on the opportunity that if this did happen, we're ready. And we got really lucky. I wouldn't say it's a bit luck. It's a bit insanity. It's probably a lot more insanity than it is luck, but we ended up being right. And I think the decisions we've made to this point have been right. Where literally the store was ready in March. We had a potential open date potentially in April that ended up getting pushed to June with all the COVID craziness. But we were probably one of the very few operators in downtown Toronto that were ready, because you could just imagine taking on a commercial renovation to both building code and to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission standard is an insane proposition. Like the amount of stress our contractor, Ryan Gibson, against the grain, he's a complete hero, like literally a hero. The stress he was under, unbelievable. Like you wouldn't believe, if anyone listening to this has ever passed building code, congratulations, you're a hero to me as well. But you could just imagine building code plus a cannabis store.
Shit, yeah.
Put like any, building inspector, literally like Arnold Schwarzenegger, via Terminator 1 style of aggression, coming at you full steam, relentlessly. Like, I mean, guys, like I want an exit sign above the door changed because it's 2 millimeters on this space not ready.
Wow.
Like, let that sink in. You're like, excuse me, say that again real slow, because I don't think I heard you properly. And would pull out a measuring tape, literally show you that much it needs to be moved over. So that's okay. It's only a $2,700 thing to do. No big deal, right? Like we're already this deep. Like let's just move a couple exit signs, and having to call a fire inspector company and a consulting company and floor plans and site plans and engineer plans and, just to move a sign, literally, I'm not lying to you guys, I'm not being dramatic, 2 millimeters. So like when you start to look through the mechanics of going through an output that relatively seems, hopefully to most people, seamless and effortless, certainly not the way, but yeah, that's what we ended up doubling down, man. So we did it, and the store was pretty much ready in March, and we just had blind faith and just kept moving forward.
Yeah.
I know that was really, really long. I figured we were going to get there anyway, so I'm sorry for being long-winded with jumping on, accelerating the story part of it, but that's kind of really the broad strokes of how we ended up going through pretty much 18 months blindly and crazily.
Yeah. That's a crazy story. That reminds me of a quote that Elon Musk said. I was watching this video where he had these like 21-year-olds and coming over, like they did like this sort of event with a college coming to I think it was like to Tesla factory, and they said and they're like if there's one piece of advice that you could leave with the students, what would it be? And he paused for a second, and he pretty much said to them, he was like, well, he says entrepreneurship's pretty much like chewing broken glass and looking over the abyss.
Yeah, like completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's, and again, that's probably mildly, right? It's the amount of respect I have for anyone that's done it in any capacity is infinite. It is so easy. I like the delusion that I went through, Max, like my own life journey and just perspective. Like if I could have heard myself 3 years ago talk about this business or like things in my general friggin' ignorance to what it actually takes and the Tesco fortitude literally it takes to do this was literally, the levels of delusion was just incomprehensible. Like it literally was. And now being on the other side of it in my evolution, looking at anyone that's ever done it, whether it's a lawn mowing company to something that's full scale multi-business, like a medium, large size business, like the levels of insanity and commitment and drive and just literally relentlessness is like you're cut from a different cloth. Like you really are. Like you're on a cliff edge really with the select few amount of people that yearn to deal with that level of crazy.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned, right? Like it's really isolating in a way, mentally, spiritually, in every capacity. It's really isolating. And I think that was the thing that I overlooked. Even just like with you, with your friends, like even just going to bullshit and have a beer with the boys or like anything. And someone would be like, well, how you doing? How is that? And the amount of people that could literally relate to the words and the weight and the stress and the anxiety and the burden and the tears and just like wanting to literally throw a fit that truly understood that I could count them on one hand, maybe not even. Not that that's on people, they're not doing it. It's just perspective, right? Like, they didn't do anything wrong. It's just you have to, like, there's the people that have that perspective that have done that are on that cliff edge. You really start to realize it's really, really, really few.
Yeah. You have to live it to understand what entrepreneurship.
You can't talk it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a whole new appreciation for it now.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end here. Pretty much, yes. Thank you for coming on the show. This is an amazing story. And I'm glad that I'm glad that I had the opportunity to have you on the show. But where can people find out more about you, your personal brand, and also your business as well?
Yeah, I love it. Great question. So our business name formally is 1922. Please, honestly, online, Instagram's 1922 Cannabis, I think _ if I'm correct. Our website is 1922cannabisretail.com. Those are the two major platforms to get me. My contact information, if anyone wants to reach out, is Mike at 1922cr as in cannabisretailltd.com. Those are the major platforms to come get us and see us. And honestly, like if anyone listening has questions, concerns, comments, advice, like we're here. I think that's one thing I've learned through the whole thing is the amount of people that genuinely, when you're in time of need, that were literally unsolicitedly help you without a bill or an invoice or something, it being self-interest, was so few that if there's anything I can do to help anyone pay some of that goodwill forward, like Brooke and I are here for anyone that ever needs anything. So our story is also online. That got published in the Globe and Mail, and we had a BNN interview as well off of that. So it goes into a little more detail. I know it's over an hour. I didn't really get, even though I said a lot of words, it didn't really get into some of the specifics of it, but that's where you can find us, and we're accessible, man. I really appreciate you having us on.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
And next time we'll get Brooke on. You need to meet my better half. She is also an enigma and very interesting. She's a little shy in front of the camera sometimes, but she is a critical part to the business and to our general success. I think I take more of a lead in front of the scenes. Just because I'm a little more comfortable doing that, but we can't overlook Brooke and her commitment, especially as a female leader in cannabis, which is, I think, the huge gap right now. Like you just see a lot of 6-year-old white balding fat male dudes trying to cash in, and it's a really unique thing that Brooke and I, female leader narrative, and not even a narrative, but just living your truth is a huge part of this. So hopefully next time we get her on as well, just for any of your female listeners. I'm not sure the demographic if we listen to, but she's also a huge part of what we do. So I'd be remiss if I did. Comment and give her a shout out.
In the coming weeks, I would love to have Brooke on, and maybe in the coming months, I'd love to have you on again to talk about the industry and your business and everything. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's complex. We could go on for hours about it, but I appreciate it. Hopefully to be continued.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.